I was first alerted to the possibility of category specificity working with my first semantic memory case. And this particular patient had a very clear-cut difference in his ability to define abstract words as compared with concrete words. Living things, non-living things are all concrete objects. Now, abstract words are sort of concepts, ideas, emotions. My patient AB could give me a beautiful definition of the word supplication, not even known to half the population. A hint, all sorts of words. He had not the slightest difficulty. He even gave me a nice definition of the word knowledge. But he didn't know what a carrot was, or he didn't know what a cabbage was, or he asked him about frogs. He thought there were things you went and shot in the countryside. And for me, and I documented this quantitatively, and I thought that this was an example of the categorical organisation within our vocabulary between abstract and concrete words. And then I suppose the next step for me was in fact seeing the same dissociation in a patient with acquired dyslexia. This patient, to my astonishment, could read very obscure abstract words, but stumbled completely over trying to read words like dog and cat. So here I presented this also as an example of category specificity. And soon after that, I was doing a clinical workup of a patient with a herpes encephalitis, and this patient was partly confused, partly maybe had an associative agnosia. Anyhow, I was asked to try and adjudicate between whether this patient had object recognition deficits or whether he's just a confused young man. And what I observed was that even though he knew common objects, he was unable to identify any animals or plants or foods. But his object knowledge was intact. And I worked on this patient with Tim Challis, and soon after that, things always come in clumps. There were several other herpes cases admitted to the hospital that we were asked to assess, and they all showed the same dissociation of intact object knowledge and impaired animate item knowledge. And we described our findings in these 4 patients. But people don't like accepting something that, even though you produce very clear-cut data, you always have your critics. So they thought this was because, obviously, to the man in the street, recognizing animals was far harder than trying to recognize objects. And for me, the only way to really counter these arguments in a way that can't be objected to is to find the double dissociation. And so in this case was one of the few instances, I suppose, I was actually looking out for something rather than just being led by the patient. And that was another patient who I was able to observe the opposite. This patient, knowledge of objects was very poor, but her knowledge, and we could demonstrate this, of animate things was very, very much better. And what pleased me was she was particularly good in identifying flowers and very poor in identifying objects.